Welcome to WKNC Sport Podcast in the Den. I'm your host, Logan Brumley, and today we are going to be going over a couple of topics. We're going to be talking about NC State's baseball performance in the regionals and their loss to Auburn. We're going to be talking about the season overall as well. We're going to be talking about some of the notable athletes to see in the NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championships. And then we'll be talking about some of the biggest and, in my opinion, greatest upsets that NC State has had against UNC and Duke competition, just to kind of show that we're not always the little brother for those two. So let's get straight into it, shall we? All right, let's start with NC State's college baseball performance. They lost in the conference semifinals to Clemson, but managed to secure a 2 seed in the Auburn Regional. That did not end up too well for NC State. They were blown out by both Auburn and Stetson before losing to Auburn. That Auburn loss being in the regional finals. Their pitching and defense have not been too great. They gave up more than 30 runs in all those games, and no pitcher had below a 3 ERA, having pitched multiple innings. But some of the hitting did shine, with Brandon Novy hitting multiple home runs and 6 RBIs throughout all the game. Josh Hogue, who had a 10 hits and 19 at-bats, 2 RBIs, and only struck out once in those 4 games, which is pretty impressive. Luke Nixon and Justin DeCrisio led the team with 5 runs each throughout the entire regionals. So the hitting did show up at times, but the pitching did not show up for the majority of the time there. It was a good season overall for NC State. They finished in the top echelon of the conference, which is always a win. Let's see, some of the bigger stars would be our junior right fielder, Braden Frostman, who hit .279 with 11 home runs and 47 RBIs. Chris McHugh, the sophomore first baseman, with a .396 batting average, 7 home runs and 48 RBIs. The aforementioned Josh Hogue, with a batting average of .327, 11 home runs, and 43 RBIs as well. Some of the pitchers who also showed up this season would be freshman Anderson Nance, who won 8 games, lost 2 with a 3.5 ERA. You know, winning eight of your 10 games, that is really good for a freshman pitcher. But so did some of our lower level, why did I say lower level? I meant like higher graded players. Andrew Schaffner, Jr., 4-1, 3.13 ERA and 7 saves, and most on the team. And Ryan Mayron, the sophomore, with 8 wins, 3 losses, a 3.38 ERA, and 2 complete games, which leads the team. So those are some notable pitchers on our team. The transfer portal is just starting to kick off, so there hasn't been any big moves for or against NC State. But one player that is guaranteed to leave will be Justin DeCrisio, who will be graduating and will likely be a grad transfer. He was third in the batting order, had a .249 batting average, 8 home runs, and 43 RBIs. So farewell to Justin DeCrisio. But we should be able to keep most of our star power, maybe even get some lower level guys to come up to our area. One thing to know about Auburn is that as of recording, they will be playing Coastal Carolina coming up this weekend. So hopefully someone from North Carolina can beat Auburn. If it can't be us, it's got to be someone, just kind of being petty like that. And now, a word from our sponsor, NCAA Outdoor Track and Field National Championships. Although not officially sponsoring the WKNC and the Den podcast, NC State does have a very big prevalent role in this upcoming tournament. While I cannot find anything on team performance or conference performance, some of the big names who will be coming up that have qualified for the national championships coming in a little later this month. We have Patrick Tuohy, don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, senior, who is competing at 800 meters. Brett Gardner Jr. with the 3,000 meters steeplechase, which is when they just kind of throw in some puddles on the course. I don't really get that. And Tyson Adams, a freshman, with the long jump, his record qualified was 7.61 meters, which is 16th. On the women's side, Grace Hartman is just outperforming everyone. At the 5,000 meter run, she has 15 minutes and 23 seconds, the top in the nation. She's also finished first in I think that's a 10,000 meter run with 32 minutes and 32 seconds, and was the ACC Scholar Athlete of the Year. So big shout out to Grace Hartman, and also to Savannah Bush, who also runs the 5,000 meter and finished with 15 minutes and 28 seconds. Some other notable NC State women's track and field outdoor athletes is a long name. Angelina Napoleon, sophomore, with the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase at 9 minutes and 37 seconds. And Marima Hunt with the long jump at 6.11 meters. So, best of luck to our female athletes and male athletes who will be competing in the outdoor NCAA track and field championships, which will be in about a week from now. I don't know where you can watch it. I don't know where you can stream it, or I can't remember the name of the website. You can see the results, but it's all out there. Just definitely go and check them out. All right, coming up next, we're going to be going over some big Duke and UNC upsets. I have NC State's upset against the 2009-2010 Duke basketball team, and the upset in 86 against UNC. So, get buckled up. It's going to be a doozy. Let's start with Duke basketball. Duke has always historically been the top dog of North Carolina's college basketball programs. And this year, 2009-2010 season, it's no different, with Coach K on the helm and 7 NBA players on their roster. It was going to be a really, really tough battle for NC State entering this game. They'd already gotten obliterated by Duke earlier in the season. Duke brings out a starting 5 of John Shire, who leads the conference in 3 points and leads the team in assist and steals. Forward Kyle Singler, who has been the number 2 guy behind John Shire for most of the season. The third most efficient scorer is Nolan Smith. They have Lance Thomas, who is an elite shot finisher, and Brian Sobek, who is splitting starting time with the Plumleys, Miles and Mason Plumlee, as the big body rebounder and blocker. So beating this team is going to be really tough, with all those players I mentioned getting a little bit of experience in the NBA professional level compared to only one player on NC State. At this time, NC State is with the questionable reign of power from alumni Sidney Lowe. Sidney Lowe was part of that 1984 championship team, but since then hasn't really sniffed that level of prominence, with his notable coaching experience being those last few miserable years in the Minnesota Timberwolves before Kevin Garnett left for Boston. The only NBA player on his roster right now is Dennis Horner, who leads the team in 2-point and free throw scoring and is second in most of the major stats for the team. But the big star of the team would be Tracy Smith, who leads the conference in field goal percentage and leads the team in points, rebounds, and blocks. Some other notable members for the starting 5 are Scott Wood, who's the team's only consistent point scorer and is the only one who has started every single game heading up to this game. Javier Gonzalez, the assistant steals leader, and Farnold DeGand. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that last name right. That's going to be a common theme as we get more episodes done. And he was their all-around rotational starter. So, it's going to be tough, but let's see how they do. They begin neck and neck. DeGand's passing and Smith's shooting, keeping up with Duke's layup prowess, with Shire and Singler carrying the ball most of the time. A John Shire 3 keeps NC State behind for about a minute and some change before the free line comes to save NC State. DeGand and Horner both get 2, which ties the game up, and a particular shot by Tracy Smith, assisted again by DeGand, gives NC State a lead they won't replenish for the rest of the half. The team was spread out scoring with Horner, DeGand, and 6th-man Richard Howell keeping the lead away from John Shire and Kyle Singler's work behind the line. Duke just cannot get the ball in this first half, no matter how many opportunities NC State gives them. One player, I think Richard Howell in particular, got a lot of fouls late in the first half, but all of that seems kind of moot as they head into the second half. The lead keeps winding as shots by both Smith and Gonzalez extend the lead by 12 with about 15 minutes left in the second half. Everybody got a piece of the ball and nobody disappointed. Fouls and turnovers plagued the quiet Duke team, including a 3-minute stretch without scoring the ball at all, 4 if you don't include some free throws for Shire. That's going to be kind of a common theme for the rest of this game. A comeback does feel possible for the 7th-ranked Duke. However, a few shots by the efficient Dennis Horter clinches it with just 10 minutes left on the clock. It is a lead that NC State will not replenish to Duke, and it is an upset that would shock college basketball for maybe a short while, sure. Tracy Smith, he really took care of business in this game, scoring 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 blocks on 81% shooting with no threes. So he has been scoring behind the line and in front of, the 3-point arch pretty well in this game. Gonzalez alone had the same amount of assists, 6, 8. I think DeGand had 6, Gonzalez had 8. And that 8 is the same amount as that entire Duke team had. While being the only player on both teams to shoot 50% on threes. For Duke, no one really showed up. Singler, Smith, and Shire had to rock the ball, and they were able to get to about 15 to 20 points, respectively. But they just weren't efficient enough to catch up to NC State, who was playing lights out that entire game. The Plumlees and Sorg were really quiet tonight and didn't have any scoring or rebound efficiency that you would hope. With one player in particular, I believe it was Smith, who had more rebounds than shots put up in the entire game. It was an egregious performance by Duke. Unfortunately, they were able to kind of flip that around for the national championship win. But, having bragging rights is not a bad consolation prize, especially for a program that finished second to last in a conference that year. Sidney Lowe will get sacked from the job of following position, but this game is a highlight to his rocky tenure, as being able to beat Duke, even in a regular season college basketball game, is something that is not shamed for a college basketball coach from North Carolina being able to beat Duke or UNC, and always kind of having that bragging rights until next season is always, kind of helpful with making sure that that coach sticks around for a little bit longer. This is a win that I think he needed to stay around, but it was a good win nonetheless. It was a good, hard-earned win. Tracy Smith and Dennis Horner, they both really showed up in this game. And it was just, I can't really find the highlights because this was like 2009, 2010. I did not realize until doing the research for this game just how far behind we are in keeping a good archive of a lot of sports content. Maybe there's somewhere else I need to go. Maybe there's somewhere I'm missing. But great win against Duke, even though they won the national championship. We can say, hey, we didn't win a lot. I think we only won like 12 games this year. One of those was Duke. Who else can say that? Not a lot. All right. We'll get into the final section for today's episode with the 1986 UNC NC State Classic game. Okay. Elephant in the room. NC State finished with a higher record at the end of the season than UNC did. However, it's still an upset. UNC is ranked 18th entering a game and is tied for the top of the ACC conference with the eventual conference champion, Clemson. So UNC is no one to cough at. They were coming off a 5-6 season, sure, but Coach Dick Crum has carried this program to success before and has 6 consecutive wins over NC State University at the time. Some notable players on this team, I don't think a lot of these will be reiterated, but it's important to bring them up as these guys did go into the NFL. Mark May, the quarterback, he is the father of former UNC quarterback Drake May. Eric Streeter, receiver, who would lead the team in reception yards. Derek Fenner, running back, who was All-American with 1,250 yards. Some notable offensive linemen, Harris Burton and Jeff Garnica, who also had All-American honors. And Danny Burmeister, Derek Donald, led a very powerful backfield that would make it an uphill battle for NC State. Oh, and defensive linemen, Tim Goad and Carlton Bailey. Sorry, I had to scroll down a little bit. But Tim Goad, Carlton Bailey, there's also some big names from this UNC roster at the time. NC State, coming off a 3-8 season, they hired a new coach, Dick Sheridan. Dick Sheridan is an offensive head coach who was recently hired, by 1986 standards. Dave Doran is still there. I think that's obvious. But he was hired from Furman University after leading them to a national championship game and having 6 conference championships for Furman in 8 years. So he's shown at a lower level that he can win. And by lower level, I mean Furman at the time was a FCS team, which if you do not know the difference, FCS is Division 1A, is the lower tier. It's like the lowest tier of Division 1 before you get to Division 2. It's a whole messy thing. But Dick Sheridan, he had a no-nonsense attitude. He was very firm with what he wanted done from his players, which includes Eric Kramer, the quarterback, Steve Sally, and Frank Harris as the dynamic running back duo, and 4 NFL-level receiving players, Nas Wharton, All-American, Haywood Jeffries, All-American, Danny Peebles, and Ralph Britt, tight end. Some notable players on defense includes Michael Brooks and Derek Taylor as the defensive back duo, Pat Teague as the notable linebacker, Mike Kofer, who's kicking. His kicking's not really relevant in this game, but he did go to the NFL, so he is someone who is obviously worth mentioning. And offensive lineman Bill Leach. I don't know how I missed that name. So that's kind of what we have going into this game. It is in, I believe it was UNC. And I believe it was at UNC. UNC had the favoritism and the momentum going into this game. Dick Sheridan, he has not really proved himself. He did beat a ranked... Hold on one second. But NC State did have some success. They were able to beat a 13th ranked Maryland, but got blown out by a unranked Georgia Tech, both away games, and that really kind of sank their odds of having any positive momentum heading into the game. But you know the title of this episode, so let's wait and see what happens. I can't find much information on the first half of this game. However, I was able to find a little bit of footage with a 2-yard TD run by UNC's second running back, Eric Starr, followed by a 71-yard drive, including a double-digit big pass to Steve Sally and a pass interference on Derek Donald to help NC State tie the game at 14 with Bobby Crumbler running it in for the touchdown. So a lot of the report on this game is going to be from the second half. I did watch the entirety of the second half of this game to kind of get everything together. So hopefully I can be kind of cinematographic with it. So let's get to the second half. The positive momentum for NC State came to a screeching halt after Eric Kramer fumbled the ball on an RPO play and an injury to defensive lineman Grady Harris. UNC was able to run the ball down to the red zone before a fumble by Ray Agnew, defensive lineman for the NC State team. Ray Agnew gives NC State the ball back. But neither team scores, despite a huge run by Derek Taylor. It's kind of just a punt fest for most of this third half. Both teams had inconsistent passing from May and Kramer in this quarter, and the defense were able to stop the runs pretty well. However, a big reception and even bigger run, both by Frank Harris, rewarded him with a touchdown and a 21-14 lead. The third quarter concludes with a screen pass to Clarence Carter that puts UNC in the red zone. So right now, things are not looking good for this UNC team. How did this go off? Hold on one second. All right, fourth quarter. That's the big one. Fortunately, the fourth quarter opens with two well-executed passes by May to Quentin Smith and Randy Marriott, the latter finding a corner of the end zone for a touchdown to tie it up 21-21. NC State, however, does reply with a big 45-yard run by Steve Sally to take the lead. Again, 28-21 NC State. UNC gets the ball, marches down the field with a big pass to Dave Truitt, putting UNC in the red zone. Immediately followed by another big pass to Eric Lewis for the touchdown. Mark May simply won't let NCSU down without a fight. 28-28, tie ball game. Mark May does play lights out in the second half, or fourth quarter. The third quarter wasn't great, but another big name to note late in this game would be Quentin Smith, who did have a big, about 15-yard pass in that third quarter, at the beginning of that fourth quarter. And while he hasn't touched down yet, it's going to be interesting to see his performance come in for the rest of the game and to see how NC State can try to stop it. UNC's defense comes with big yard losses caused by Reuben Davis and Mitch White, which forces NC State to punt with a 7-point deficit. Hold on, it's tied. It's tied. There's no 7-point deficit. That's a typo on my part. Kidding. There's no 7-point deficit. It's a tie game at this point. May marches down the field with big passes to Quentin Smith and an RPO flip to Eric Starr that puts him in NC State's field position. Even with a 3-man blitz and 2 men on one wide receiver, Mark May is able to place a pass to Quentin Smith again perfectly. There's no way to slow down this offense as the clock begins to tick down. A 15-ish yard pass to Quentin Smith again puts NC State down at the 2-yard line. All UNC needs to do is run the ball in, and they are able to get that 7-point deficit that I mentioned before. But they fumbled the ball. Michael Brook knocks the ball off Eric Starr's hand, and freshman Ray Agnew pounces on it. They get the ball at UNC at their own 2-yard line, and NC State won't take it for granted. Kramer's out here. 2-minute drill time. This is go big or go home. Big passes to Sully and as Wharton makes the passing inconsistencies as afterthought as they trot to UNC's side with slightly more than a minute on the clock. A contested pass with 2 defenders, one being definitely Walter Bailey, who I think I mentioned before, but the other one's hard to make out, versus Nasrallah Wharton again. Ward catches the ball as the 2 defenders collide into each other, and he is able to just jog his way down to a touchdown. NC State leads 35-28. The last time NC State beat UNC was in 1978, the beginning of Dick Crumb's efforts at UNC. Crum has fought his way to a head coaching job, going from high school to dominating the MAC conference with Kent State before settling into UNC. He has coached the likes of Kelvin Bryant, Harris Burton, and the world-famous Lawrence Taylor. He has never been more prepared for moments like this, and so has his star quarterback, Mark May. All right, 53 seconds left on the clock. A pass to Truitt for 10 yards. For context, they are around the 15-yard line. Pass to Quentin Smith, 20 yards, on the NC State's 40. 38 seconds left on the clock. 29 seconds left on the clock. A pass to Eric Schroeder, 15 yards, NC State's 25-yard line, just outside of the red zone. Another big pass to Jenkins, 12 yards, NC State's 13-yard line. 19 seconds left on the clock. 15. May, he snaps the ball, finds Quentin Smith, 13 yards down, and is able to get the touchdown to him. It's 35-34 right now. They're trying to decide whether they want to go for 1 or 2. Dick Crum, he does not want to tie this game because I think in 1986 at the time, there was no overtime. It was either you win, lose, or draw. in that regulation time. So he wants to go for 2. May, he snaps the ball again. He finds this guy. This guy has been this guy all game. He's the guy. I keep saying guy. Quentin Smith passes it to him. It's a little short. It falls to his knees, and as he tries to catch the ball, it is just not an eligible catch no matter how you look at it, especially since he was tackled before he could get to the end zone, even if it was caught. But that point is kind of moot after some ref discussion. NC State wins the game 35-34. I don't know if I did a good job describing it, but it was definitely intense. The beginning of the end for Crum's dynasty is here. He will finish the season 7-4-1 and manage to get to a bowl game. But he will be fired the following season with a losing record, ushering in the era of Mac Brown. Dick Sheridan will get a couple of great years at NC State before he leaves as well, going to a smaller school whose name is not on the top of my head, but he does become a NC State head coaching legend and is officially in the College Football Hall of Fame as of the early 2000s. The notable NFL players I've mentioned. Mark May will be a backup for Finney Testaverde, and Kramer does jump around the league. Nasrallah Wharton spends a couple years in Kansas City. You know, I could probably go a little bit more into it, but the star power is really, you can only see it, the proof is only in the pudding. And with this pudding, you'd think Quentin Smith was an all-pro, and that Steve Sally was the star of this team. Which he was. In my opinion, he kind of gets that MVP of the game, even though Eric Kramer had a great game. He would go on to be a serviceable quarterback around the league. I think I already mentioned that. His most notable time was in Chicago. But it's these small blips of victory that matter during UNC's dominant streaks in the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. But now that NC State, we're the top dogs of North Carolina college football-ish because Duke is kind of good, but UNC, I think we have the last of NC State being a big brother, though, with Bill Belichick showing up. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's these small wins against a big rival that makes the rest of the season feel moot. And that concludes today's episode of the In the Den podcast. Coming up for our next episode, I'll be talking about some of the greatest female athletes in North Carolina State University's history. And I will be going over the brief history of one of NC State's hometown Raleigh's biggest semi-professional teams, the Raleigh Skyhawks. So that's all for today. I hope you had a good time listening. I hope it didn't waste half an hour of your day. And go State.